I've actually been getting into making stuff with aluminium extrusions lately because it's so easy, it's so clean, it's so nice to work with. You just model it out in the CAD software and then put it together, and you don't need to wait for anything. You don't need to wait for the lacquer to dry. You don't need to wait for the glue to dry or anything like that. It's just done straight away. At the same time, it's sometimes a little bit infuriating, as you'll see in this video. So I personally buy all of my aluminium extrusions from Alex Profile. I've ordered from them I think 4 times and everything's been fine, except for my leg. Jesus. So stupid. But essentially we're building some infrastructure today. I finished the concrete wall last week. If you haven't seen that video, definitely check it out. In this video, I'm mainly focusing on a single sequence, so to say. So in my videos, when I build something or when I create something to 3D print, then I model it out on the CAD software on the iPad. And you'll see me working in that way where you have 2 camera angles, one from above, one from the side. And in that way I can super quickly switch between the two and compress a 2-hour-long clip into maybe a couple seconds, right? So I really enjoy this shot, but it takes me a ton of time to actually set up. And I just want that to be dedicated. Seems so it's in every single video. Seems like a worthwhile investment to make that standardized and really quick to set up. So I just started off with creating this very simple little frame, 60 by 120 centimeters. That allows us to put a sheet of melamine over the top over there, which you can buy in the hardware store for really quite cheap. And because you can model this stuff out in the CAD software, we can actually predetermine where we need to drill the holes. So I often work with these 3D printed little jigs. This allows me to just accurately drill holes in the melamine sheet, so we can attach it to the T-slots and attach the wheels to that as well. If you'd like the design files for this, then definitely check out my Patreon page. I upload pretty much everything I make over there. And it really helps me support content like this where I don't necessarily have a sponsor involved. These holes go through the melamine sheet, and I place some M5 bolt holders at the bottom over there in the aluminium extrusions. And we're going to attach the casters at the same time as we're going to be attaching the melamine sheet. This is kind of a pain to do because you have to aim it really well. And I put some washers around those nuts over there so the casters are held in place really nicely. I'll leave a link to the casters that I use in the description down below. Sounds really simple, but I've actually found that these casters are really quite decent and hold up really nicely long term. I've tried cheaper models before and those seem to break really quite quickly, or they don't seem to roll as nicely, and it becomes really hard to move a desk. Now I'm not entirely set on the design yet for the entire fleet of desks over here, but I'm putting another one of those melamine sheets over the top over here, and then we can add another 45 by 90 aluminium extrusion as the desk legs essentially. And we'll be adding those with these side plates, which you can attach to both models and then have that sheet of melamine in between them. So nothing is actually holding this thing in place except for the pressure of those side plates. Then the nice thing about having this sandwich essentially is that you can route cables in between them. So you could drill some holes into the melamine sheet, put some nice 3D printed parts in that, and then route all of the cables through the body of the build. That way you don't have to deal with it externally. I've also been considering buying some cable cutters and just mounting that onto the aluminium extrusion, just to make it a little bit easier, because sometimes routing stuff through the body of the build can be quite annoying to do. As for the top part over here, it's exactly the same as the bottom layer, and that's really nice if you want to mount stuff to it. So I've also been considering making a little workbench which has a vise mounted to it, and I was wondering if I could mount that onto the aluminium extrusions actually. So definitely let me know in the comment section if that's something you would recommend, or if I should stray away from that because it's too flexible in some kind of way. So I'm using those same jigs that we used in the beginning of the video to actually drill some holes in the top layer so that I can actually mount that to the aluminium extrusions. And I'm going to have to countersink these bolts because I want a concrete top panel to lay on top of this, which is sacrificial. So in this case, we're not going to be doing any heavy machinery stuff on there, but if we do use it as a workbench, it would be really nice if we can actually remove the top and switch it out for a new one as soon as it's too far gone. after we've countersunk those holes, I'm going to use some washers and a bolt here to hold them in place. Now I don't really like this countersinking method because you can see directly into the melamine sheet of course, and the inside is brown because of the wood. So what we could do is 3D print some covers for those holes over there, but as I'm adding that concrete sheet, it shouldn't be that big of an issue. I don't know what it is with aluminium extrusions and concrete, but it just comes out looking so clean and so clinical. I really like the look of it, but it's very different from the rest of the space, right, with all of the wooden laser cut stuff. So I'm probably going to have to divide the two rooms between the laser cut desks and the actual clinical, clean, laboratory looking desks. At this point I was checking out what a drill press would look like on a desk like this, and also a 3D printer, so you can stack 2 or 3 3D printers next to each other in a setup like this, which makes it really versatile. You just roll it around in the space and put it somewhere where you can 3D print and not be bothered by the noise, for example. Now that will have to be a project for another day, but today we're focusing on the overhead rig with the camera mount so that I can actually film what I'm doing on the iPad over here. And I thought I'd reuse some old monitor arms that I have laying around, which I used in my prior overhead rig, which didn't last all too long, and just mount them onto the side of the aluminium extrusions, add some 30-30 aluminium extrusions at the top over there, so that we can mount that top angle. These monitor arms are the extended version, so they're about 80 centimeters long, and they have a modified bottom over there with some kind of rail mount that you can buy in a hardware store for quite cheap, and these will just screw onto the side of the aluminium extrusions. So these tubes are about 33mm in diameter, and I'm just adding the standard monitor arm mount, but then without the tube that goes to the VESA mount. I didn't actually order these components specifically for this build, but they seem to fit exactly right, which was quite surprising and also really nice. And eventually when I mounted it all together and mounted the crossbar over there as well, it seemed to be really quite solid. But there's also a camera that shoots over my shoulder and looks at the iPad in that way. And for that I got another monitor arm. This one is a piston type monitor arm. And I took off the VESA mount plate and managed to put a little thread mount through the hole over there and attach a ball head to that. So I didn't do any permanent modifications to this monitor arm because, you know, maybe it doesn't really work out and I want to reuse that for a different build later on. But in general that worked out really nicely. So what I did is I added a tube light to the top over there, and because of that monitor arm at the bottom, I can actually move the camera around and get close-up shots if I want to showcase something in the software Shaper 3D, and also move it up and down if I wanted to. I'm keeping the setup really versatile as well, so I'm not adding any cables to this thing, I'm not adding any additional recorders to it. There's just 2 cameras, they run off their own batteries. I hit record on both cameras and then sync it up later down the line in the post-processing side of stuff. I noticed that when I overcomplicate things in builds like this, that they don't get used a whole lot. So in this case it's very simple, that's also what makes it so good. Hope you enjoyed it, hope it gave you some inspiration, and hopefully see you in the next one.